I've got somebody with me who can talk non-stop, sell non-stop. She's been an inspiration, and I've got her head of engineering, Srivatsa. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. You've slowed down. You should talk more. By the way, she's the founder of Dunya Labs. Where's the other co-founder? Where did he go?
Yeah, so our co-founder right now is in New York, so
What's
he
his name?
unfortunately couldn't join us, Srikar Varadaraj, but hopefully he'll join us for the next
And
one.
he's a math wizard, isn't he?
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about? We're going to talk about blockchain and why it's going to be the next best thing. And we're always saying it's the next best thing. It's the most misconstrued word. But you want to tell us and break the myths of blockchain. Let's start. Where do you want to go?
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that's really missing these days is blockchain is used for such a wide variety of use cases and different types of conversation. But we really at Dunya Labs want to go back to what are the roots and the visionary narratives about what blockchain could become. And we're not saying about blockchain as a sole technology, but a suite of different technologies that are going to come together to build decentralized systems and protocols.
What are those suite of technologies that will come together?
So blockchain is definitely a part of it. You know, advanced cryptography and cryptographic primitives is definitely another part. Advances in distributed databases is a huge part of blockchain research. So all of these different disciplines and even economics and governance, right? Because public blockchains, one of their main value adds is that they have this incentive system layered on top, and that requires also study in game theory.
Correct.
So it's really a multidisciplinary kind of effort to build a more decentralized version of
you know,
existing
Cathy,
systems.
correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody just told me that it's the first time in the history of the world that IT, economics, and politics have come together in
Absolutely.
blockchain. Is that true?
Absolutely, and that multidisciplinary effort is really what drew the founders to working on something like this.
It's amazing. So you've got you've stolen somebody from ThoughtWorks, right? But but great, you're part of a startup, Shivatsa. And tell me, what are you going to be building here in Dunya?
Absolutely. To put it in simple terms, what we would like to build at Dunya is build AWS for blockchain.
Okay, you want to explain that further?
Definitely.
Because AWS can mean multiple things.
Absolutely.
It's a big elephant out there.
Absolutely. As you know, like in blockchain, there are multiple protocols, multiple different kinds of technologies in terms of how you build smart contracts, how do you deploy them, different consensus algorithms and all of it, which sort of acts as an entry barrier for people who want to adopt blockchain, right? What AWS did like 10-15 years back in terms of abstracting storage or compute, like you don't have to worry about.
Disrupted that system.
Absolutely, right? And it takes a minutes today if you have an idea to bring it into live and put it in front of your customers. We are looking at how do we do that in blockchain space, because right now there's case of skill set in the blockchain space in terms of developers, definitely. And two, there's a lot of blockchain technologies. Like how do people?
Yeah, there's several.
Exactly, right.
And Cathy, I want to ask you this, right? Your focus on the company is developers. Why so?
So our focus is because we really see two phases of these kind of decentralized protocol adoption. The first phase is we need to get developers and entrepreneurs building stuff on these decentralized protocols. And then the second phase of adoption is getting users to then use those products. But right now, the bottleneck is really in getting developers who are outside the space to work with a bunch of different protocols with different consensus algorithms, different compute layers, different forms of storage, different forms of accessing computational resources. So we want to create that kind of plug-and-play AWS suite of services where it says, look, you want some part of your application or some core features of your applications to be decentralized. Can you get that up and running as soon as possible? And there's a bunch of corollaries to centralized systems, right? Maybe Cathy can talk
and
about that.
it's nice. So it's going to have an infrastructure layer, which means nodes across the world, you were telling me.
Yeah.
And that'll be businesses that lease out these nodes. I mean, forgive me if I get these terminologies wrong, but these nodes would be leased out from you, or these are people just providing space to
they would
host
actually
things?
be running nodes, which becomes part of a larger network, which is called decentralized network.
Right, and you reward them, right, for offering that network or
Right.
whatever.
So the protocol itself does that, right? So if you think about a public blockchain, so we work with public blockchains like Ethereum, like EOS,
Correct.
because we believe that that's really the true vision of decentralized technologies. And so the way that these protocols work is that they incentivize a bunch of self-interested computers or data centers around the world to secure the network, even though there's no central coordination amongst them, right? So it's kind of like having a decentralized compute layer. What we want to do is build infrastructure services on top of the protocol's existing infrastructure. So, essentially a Jenkins version for blockchain, or these different types of infrastructure and developer tooling, but not like providing the infrastructure itself. That the protocol.
You tell me one thing. Let's break the myth. Why should people build on blockchain fundamentally? Tell them the basic fundamental theory behind why blockchain is the future. Because a lot of the Indian folks probably think that we've got distributed databases. Why think about blockchain? But I would disagree with many of them because it's not decentralized, one thing. And a lot of the world today is becoming centralized. We spoke about the internet, which is becoming so centralized now.
Right.
We need to have transparent, authenticated factors now, right? You want to talk about why they should focus on blockchain, not just worry about crypto or public or private blockchain. Forget these monikers, right? Rather than focus on why you got to build, right? You want to tell us that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I want to clear up is that when you're building an application, not all of it is going to be on-chain, on the blockchain, right? There might be some key parts that you want to put on the blockchain for specific reasons. One of the reasons would be, let's say, auditability. You want people to be able to audit that part of your application to make sure that it's running properly or running in a fair way. One example of this would be certain types of games, let's say betting games, right? You want to be able to show your customers that the algorithms that are providing the outcomes to these games are provably fair.
Yes.
And that's something that you can provide on-chain to give people that comfort, right? Another reason to build on public blockchains is essentially open access for different types of businesses. One thing that really motivates developers is that if I'm working on, essentially the network that LinkedIn has created or Twitter or Facebook, they could close those APIs at any moment, right? If you're working on public blockchain networks and there's a lot of users on them and there's a lot of transactions, that is something that no centralized company can stop you from accessing, right? Because it's literally an open and decentralized network. I think Kata can also speak to about some of the other benefits from a developer perspective.
What kind of developer interest have you seen in India so far, Kata?
In the blockchain space, I think a lot of people want to learn new technology. The thing that blockchain is yet another new technology, and one of the things I keep telling our folks as well is that 80% of what you do is fundamentals which you've learned outside of blockchain space. Like you need to understand what does it mean to do system design. What does it mean exactly? How do you do storage? How do you write efficient algorithms? With blockchain, the complexity increases a little more, but not that none of the fundamentals one would have learned in a traditional development would all be completely unlearned, right? So that's one thing which I keep reminding people that hey, blockchain, yes, you need to learn few more things. It's not a completely different technology that you have to unlearn everything you've learned before.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that people look at blockchain as this white elephant out there, something that's happening, and just go have fun, right? So they can just sign up with you guys and just start coding on top of the platform today.
So we actually have started like EOS Catalyst series. The goal is to bring awareness into the developer community. We actually do hands-on workshops. Tell them how do you build smart contracts on EOS? What sort of technologies you need. We've given content. We've been visiting like institutions like IIT Mumbai and giving hands-on workshops instead of just talking about blockchain as a philosophy and
you want to talk about a practical approach to these?
Absolutely. We are literally showing them, hey, look, it's not very different. Yeah, this 10% is where you need to understand smart contract, where it executes, how do you monitor, but rest of it is all something you know already.
So Cathy, think about this. You want to focus on fintech. That's something that we want to talk about. Say somebody wants to launch a payments app and say build analytics on top of that. It can still be downloaded on a phone, but it can be on a blockchain network, right?
Oh, well, you have to really make clever design choices on what parts of your application you want to be decentralized and for what reason, right? I always give the example of something like lending. For instance, if you want essentially the lending loan to be autonomously executed, then maybe you want to decentralize some parts of that because you want to make sure that, some people, they get worried, right? If I'm going to pay some sort of principal, am I going to get the amount back? I have to trust that person is going to, value and essentially honor that paper contract. If you want that to be autonomously auditable and executed, maybe you want to put that part on a blockchain. But a lot of the stuff that's in your, whether it's financial application or consumer application can be off-chain and function just like a normal application.
And the private and public blockchain arguments picking up. IBM has taken its own route.
Yeah.
AWS has taken its own route. And all of them are saying it's going to be private.
Right.
For me, private means it's centralized. And it's really not blockchain. But anyway, that's an application of smart contracts that they want to go after. But a decentralized one would be a public blockchain. Right?
Yes.
And that's where you offer these developers a chance to build their apps on.
Right. So we basically say there's a bunch of different public blockchains out there, for instance, Ethereum, EOS, Dfinity, that have different approaches of trying to become the real dominant protocol for the decentralized version of the internet. So we want to give developers the ability to build across all of these different public chains and get their applications running really quickly and really easily and get access to kind of cross-chain interoperable infrastructure services.
Interoperable is a key word there. So they can move across platforms, you're saying, in the blockchain.
So take an example of data, right? If you want to know what's there in a block, how you do it with Ethereum is very different from how do you do it EOS.
Yes.
Like if someone's building a data, like trying to do some sort of data analytics across blockchains, we sort of envision build an API sort of a platform on top of Dunya services where they could literally query data from EOS or Ethereum or Definity and build their analytic solutions on top of it. They don't have to learn how do I integrate with API of EOS and all of it. Absolutely.
So talk about the products. You've given names to different products yet? You've branded them?
Yeah.
You want to talk about them?
Absolutely. So we're almost launching our first product. It's currently in testing mode. We're testing internally as well as testing with a lot of our potential customers and really interesting global projects that want to use these infrastructure services. So the product is called Eclipse.
Eclipse?
Yes.
Why? The reason behind calling it Eclipse?
The reason behind calling it Eclipse?
Was it a project or was it because it's going to eclipse everything else out
It definitely has a little bit of that, dominant view, but I think that Eclipse really, I don't think that there's really a reason we really like the name.
You picked the name or the team or consensus? How did it work?
It was picked before I joined Dunya Labs.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one product.
Yes.
Okay, what are the other products that we can expect from you?
So from Eclipse, actually, we can utilize that architecture. So Eclipse's main function is abstracting away kind of the computational resource part of working with blockchain. So you are able to essentially access that blockchain's, computational resources and make sure your application is online in a very easy and seamless way. That's what we promise developers.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about the different mechanisms that make, your application might be stopped or this, that.
Or
you
porting data, maybe.
Yeah, you can make sure that it's online at all times, accessible to your users, et cetera, et cetera. So on top of that infrastructure, we also are building, data analytics, the ability to analyze, how your decentralized application is performing, where your users are using it, what are they using before and after. So these are all things that we're trying to do.
Would you invite developers from corporate, say big banks, for example, they have big IT teams, that they should come participate in Dunya Labs? Do you have a strategy with the institutions?
Right now, we're really focusing on people that are already in the decentralized application space. We think that there's a lot of activity there and a good critical mass, but we are definitely open to also talking about corporates to how to integrate this new type of technology into what they're looking at.
And you said growth is very important for you this year because you're launching soon.
Yes.
What's the strategy? What's the business strategy for your platform?
Absolutely. So right now, we've gotten a lot of traction with people that are already building on public blockchains in terms of being able to avail our services. So our view is to launch, get that visibility, get those early customers on board, test and iterate and make sure our product is as sound and scalable as possible. We're definitely putting a lot of energy on expanding our engineering team. We were really, really lucky.
So you're hiring at the moment?
Yes.
And who can they write to?
Absolutely. So
Who
they can
give an email?
Hiring at dunyalabs.io.
Does it get looked at?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Every single day.
So you're hiring about 20-30 engineers?
Yeah, we're trying to hire about 10-15 core engineers and expanding our team rapidly.
And what kind of languages or what kind of technology should they be well versed with?
So
or would you train them?
We are a multidisciplinary team and we do have interns, so that would explain that. We do put in a lot of investment in grooming interns so that they could get into the mainstream and all of it. We also have a research function where, because we believe that a lot of these protocols are very nascent, so it's very important to understand the underlying protocol if you were to come up with better products which would actually solve.
Does this underlying protocol have a name?
Yes, EOS is
the same.
All of these are protocols. Yeah, those are protocols.
You call them protocols. Is it
Yeah,
just like the HTTPS? It's like a HTTPS. Would you call that?
Yeah, HTTPS or internet protocols.
It's like
these are blockchain protocols. Yeah.
Right. So, but most of the engineers in India would they know this? Would they have learned this? And
so the type of engineer that we're really looking for are strong full stack engineers who are able to be extremely hands-on and extremely well versed in whatever their area of expertise. And it's our job to get them caught up on the blockchain stuff, right? But it's exciting because engineers who join us from day one, they can contribute. They can contribute whether or not they're strong in infrastructure side, in front end, in full stack development. But we also create and put a lot of resources into learning and development so that 20% core domain specific knowledge and product specific knowledge they can caught up with as soon as possible.
And most of these blockchains are not built on a new programming paradigm. Right?
Yes.
It's still on C, C++, JavaScript.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's all traditional like Node.js, Java bindings, C# bindings. And with Web 3.0, even the blockchains are thinking of, hey, why even have Solidity, which is very specific to probably Ethereum? Why not translate into WebAssembly, which is a standard? So no matter which programming language you write your smart contracts on, it gets compiled into WebAssembly, which blockchain understands,
Okay.
right? So there is also a bit of standardization that's happening across blockchains, which helps developers to adopt really quickly.
Yeah, I also want to know the early. I mean, you've opened up the system for any testing at this point of time. Early developers coming and using the platform. Has that happened? What
Yes.
kind of games or what kind of apps are they building?
Absolutely. So, we're testing with certain partners. Many of them are, for instance, in the US or in the Chinese markets. We're testing with this one project, for instance, that's building essentially a new different type of account system. So their
nice.
view is like, right now, if you want to play games on one blockchain or use applications on another blockchain, you have to make a bunch of different accounts. You have to interact with different wallets, and it gets confusing. So their view is, can we create that universal ID where a user can go in, only store one set of passwords or private keys, and then go in and use a bunch of different blockchains applications, right? So it's kind of like perfect, because both of our theses, like both of our project's theses, is that we need to abstract away complexity. We're abstracting away on the developer angle, they're abstracting away on the user angle, and they're migrating over 600,000 users onto this new account
So it's an
platform.
account system where you can interoperate multiple accounts, and
Yeah.
you can move
A
from
single
one to
account
single
across
account,
different
everything.
blockchains.
Yeah, so that users can better use decentralized applications in a seamless way. So that's a great way for us too to bootstrap the first kind of customer base for our product.
And anything else that's interesting? You keep talking about gaming. A lot of people building games on this.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of use cases around gaming for multiple reasons. For instance, in-game virtual assets has become a huge economy, right? If you look at how successful Fortnite has been. And the way we think about it is that what blockchains enable are scarceable digital goods. So when you play a game on Fortnite, you're not able to take that virtual good out of Fortnite. You're not able to really trade
you just
it.
get
except for-
rewarded. And
Exactly.
You don't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
Unless you buy something in app or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just getting you addicted to the game.
That's it.
Yeah, but if virtual goods can be essentially scarce and they can have very clear digital ownership, which the blockchain enables, then you can create entire kinds of different economies of virtual goods,
I agree.
which is the reality that we're moving to, right?
Like
With
Ready Player
VR,
One, right?
with
It is like
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, I read your mind there, but I'm sorry about that. But it is happening. There's a convergence. So that was my next question to you. So there's a convergence of AR, VR, the virtual goods economy, and
Definitely.
blockchain will probably be
Definitely.
decentralized platform.
Absolutely, including IoT. There's a lot of this apprehension that yes, blockchain is all transparent and tamper-proof and all of it. What if somebody who enters data into the blockchain is not entering it right? So that's where IoT comes into play, where eliminate the human involvement even there.
Okay.
Let the IoT push the information to the blockchain, where you completely get rid of any scope for
Yeah.
human
So
error.
one thing that we'd really like to talk about is it's not just blockchain, right? Ultimately, what we're really seeing is the convergence of multiple different types of technologies. IoT is going to be a data capture layer. Blockchain will be a data storage layer, and then AI will be a data analysis layer. And then all of these things are going to come together to and what's the end value, right? The end value number one is that users, there should not be monopolies of data in such that we have in the current system. There should be more private, locally stored, and enablement of services, as opposed to a bunch of centralized companies owning every piece of data about us. I mean, how scary will it be? Even right now, there's a lot of backlash against certain things in the IoT world, which is constantly collecting data, and you're not sure who owns it, who has access to it, right? And so these convergence of next generation technologies, we're trying to create a more consumer centric, more privacy preserving, and ultimately less centralized version of digital services.
It's interesting, right? But like everything, like the early internet, do you think blockchain will also go through the same problem, whereas one particular protocol would take over everything, and then there are systems on top of that can control things? Will that happen?
Yeah. I mean, we debate this, internally.
Will it happen?
I think that it will be very, very difficult for a dominant protocol to really be taken over. If you even think about it, Bitcoin network is already at a scale where it's basically economically infeasible to take over the network, right? And they're designed that way. They're designed specifically through consensus mechanisms that make it very extremely hard to overpower. So we're not super worried about that, but we do debate a lot about, look, is there going to be one protocol or one public blockchain that becomes the decentralized internet backbone? Is it going to be a couple and they can talk to one another? Is it going to be a bunch and they all have different optimizations and it's all interoperable? That is to be seen, and that's something we keep a very close eye on understanding.
Interesting. Cathy, the other thing is, when you talk about blockchain, there's a lot of sociology in it. I mean, and the sociology being, what do young people want while interacting with systems, right, in the future?
Absolutely.
And And do you think that'll happen where, we talk about globalization and it's discontent. So I said it failed and you said it's only discontent, right? But what do young people want out of these systems? They want systems are they really open to sharing information?
I think what we're seeing really is that people want to feel more in control of their digital lives.
Yeah. So Professor Tim Berners-Lee, who's the inventor of World Wide Web, right? He started a project called Solid. I think his main thesis is the data shouldn't be owned by a central authority.
It's called Solid, yeah?
Solid, yeah. Right? So you have control in terms of, what data you own and what data you want somebody else to see, right? And none of that, all of this is on a decentralized ecosystem.
Nice.
Not necessarily blockchain, it's a decentralized ecosystem. You ask what other decentralized technologies other than blockchain, the inventor of web itself is working on a project where he's looking at decentralized way of mainly targeting data. How do we handle this data privacy issue? At the same time, if you hold on to your data without letting it go, you're not gonna be very inventive in terms of how could I leverage that data to provide you better services, right? So how do you have control at the same time provide it to the larger ecosystem?
I was talking to the Walmart guys, and they were saying that blockchain is great for private contracts. For private blockchain with their vendors, because it has a set of 10 people in an ecosystem,
right?
And from farm to fork, you can track the product, and we saw some articles come out of that too. But they tell me that, but in terms of e-commerce, because of the massive number of people coming and transacting, this blockchain would be difficult to handle that kind of traffic.
Scalability right now is definitely an issue.
Why is that? Is it because of compute powers? Or?
Because of the consensus algorithms.
Okay.
And as a simple example, if you have 10,000 nodes in a decentralized network, if more than 1/3 of them or 2/3 of them needs to agree on certain thing, it requires time to get to that consensus. Okay. Right? Yeah. And that consensus takes time, and that in turn has an impact on the throughput of number of transactions per second and all. Having said that, protocols are reinventing their consensus.
Is there research around this to
There's
make it
a lot of research
Absolutely.
around this, and that's why Srikar plays a big part in our team, keeping an eye on this research. But the thing is that I think people need to caution against is everyone's trying to say, let me get maximum throughput, right? But these systems were designed to be slow. Why were they designed to be slow? Because they want to be decentralized and secure. Yeah. You can't break the decentralization part by trying to go too fast, right? So people are really looking at layer 2 and layer 3 solutions. So for instance, the payment network on Bitcoin network, which we've seen, it's called Lightning. It's a layer 2 solution that we're kind of seeing. So the idea is you don't have to make every transaction on the Bitcoin network. You can have a layer on top of the Bitcoin network where you almost open a tab where you say, I'm going to make some recurring payments. And then after, we go back and forth with some payments, the final kind of summation of that is on chain.
So it's an hybrid kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of saying we don't have to have everything be transacted at this layer. We just need to anchor all of the transactions eventually on this most secure layer. So there's a lot of people working on this stuff. And one thing that I have to say is that, we don't, at Dunya, we never pay attention to price, right? We never pay attention to all of the noise around the market. Well, we really
the noise around raising money also.
What we pay attention to is how many developers are getting into this, how many smart researchers are getting into this, how many foundational problems are being solved, and the speed of that has, if anything, in this market, picked up and not decreased.
And your business model is charge these developers something, or
exactly? Very similar to AWS, we charge developers for the services we provide them.
Pay as you go kind of thing. So to check you out today, is there a website that they have to go to? Or?
Absolutely. You can definitely visit us at www.dunyalabs.io. That's DUNYALABS.io. Follow us on Twitter. We're very active on Facebook, LinkedIn, our office in Koramangala, and we're always happy for anybody to stop by and say
tell me how important is a narrative for a startup? I wish, if I have a startup, I'm going to make you the co-founder of it because you sell very well. And I'm being honest, that's a compliment. Tell startups out there, young people watching, our audience is 18 to 35. Why is it absolutely important to sell what you believe in a most articulate manner?
I think storytelling is extremely important. I came from a background of studying philosophy and writing my whole life, doing debate, and for most of my life I thought that was probably my only strength, and it's been great to be able to develop other strengths as well. But storytelling is important because when you're a startup, you're fighting against so many external odds, right? People don't want to join. Your customers aren't sure if this is the right thing for them. Your investors aren't sure if you're the one. So not only just selling, you're selling internally, right? You're keeping a core group of people together and aligned on a vision, and then you're bringing external people to believe in you. And every day is a struggle, and almost every single conversation I have involves that.
I want to ask you, what was, in terms of Dunya Labs and talking to investors, talking to different stakeholders, what's been the most difficult sell to you? Or, does it humble you at times that, people don't get what you do?
I mean, I hear no at least. I was telling Kata, I asked him this, right? I said, what was your sales success rate at ThoughtWorks? And he said it was about 80-90%. And I said, okay, here, let's invert that. You're going to 80-90% of the time, you're going to hear no. 5 to 10% of the time, you're going to hear
and
yes.
That's going to be a big yes because they believe in the product.
Yeah, but you have to get used to that. And, you know, persistence is key. And I really...
Give an example. Did you have a tough time selling to anybody?
Really tough. I mean, we've been selling to plenty of investors, selling to plenty of, you know, different types of customers, right? And you hear things a lot about like, look, we don't really understand this technology yet. Look, we're not really ready to take a bet. Look, we don't really know, right? I went into one meeting and some guy really said, like, after my presentation, he said, my brain hurts.
He said that? Wow.
Yeah. So these things do happen, right? But I always put a smile on my face because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It's also because of the lack of good understanding of the underlying technology and what this could actually do to the economy and the industry and so on and so forth. That's also making it harder for us to sell just an idea, whereas the regular e-commerce and all of it, people understand how that works in the system. You just have to sell your unique idea which works on top of that.
Right.
Why did you go to people like Draper, you know, and they're talking about blockchain? I mean, you mentioned Tim Berners-Lee.
Yeah.
There are people, the Atari founder maybe. I mean, they're all talking about blockchain. Why don't you talk to these strategics rather than go to people out there who've got the money? And
yeah, of course. I mean, we do talk to strategics quite a bit, but even from their perspective, there's still multiple views and multiple, you know, considerations that they have. And from us, it's like we want to educate we want to promote mass adoption, right? We want to get people that aren't in this game yet to buy into it, to understand, and to follow us.
And the
along
best
the
way is
journey.
to go through the ecosystem of developers, right?
Yes.
Do you have competition?
Do we have competition?
You should talk about it, honestly.
Yeah.
On the infrastructure services, there are a handful across the globe.
Names? Big names?
Like all of these block producers are building like API platforms on top of existing blockchains.
Okay.
But not many have thought through like interoperable across blockchains. All of them are like, oh, we've built like a lot of this tooling on US blockchain. We have built a lot of this tooling on Ethereum blockchain. But no one's thinking like across blockchain, how do I provide a unified experience and APIs and platform and services on top of different blockchains.
Yeah, and there's a lot of competition from China. A lot of teams in China,
Obviously,
a lot of
China
teams
is
in the
tapping
US,
us.
right?
Yeah.
They are. And
Why choose India then? I mean, you could have launched, you and Srikar could have gone to China.
She likes masala dosa. So.
Is that even, yeah.
Guilty
Is
as
that-
charged. Guilty as
Really?
charged. Yeah.
Really? Okay, but tell me the honest truth about it. Why choose India? You both of you could have gone to any other nation. You could have gone to Ireland, for example.
Absolutely. So one of the views we have is that, you know, what's the end goal of this technology? The end goal of this technology is to provide easier access to financial and digital services, right? And we realize that the biggest market for that is still in emerging economies. Do people in the US really need easier access to a bank
So
account?
people
they don't,
are not
right?
caught up by legacy.
There's,
because
there's no
okay.
legacy, and there's a lot of demand, and there's a lot of ability to leapfrog technologies. At the same time, there's a lot of education that needs to be done, right? I think that one thing that India could focus more on is widening their breadth of what they see as opportunities. I've met such good people here in deep tech, in engineering, and stuff, right? It's not that all the opportunities here are just consumer or just a certain sector. I think that there's a lot going on here, and honestly, I love
I
India.
think a lot of people buying, mind share, right? Especially the B2C businesses, right?
Yeah.
And they say India is the biggest consumer market, but there's so many other things. If it's consumer, it also has payments.
Right.
That means you can leapfrog all those legacy payments that America is used to, like
Exactly.
checks.
Right.
They still use checks in America.
Exactly,
right?
and
So-
India is growing at a 7% growth rate. It's going to create $15 trillion worth of wealth in the next 15 years, and this is a big historical moment for the country. And in fact, I feel really, really lucky to be able
And
to have this.
if you brought him to your company from a legacy IT services firm, it's amazing, right? Why? I'm gonna pick your brains a bit. Why join a startup at this point in time in your career? You could have sailed through IT services. You could be VP product, head of some country.
I was leading data practice for ThoughtWorks India at ThoughtWorks, right? For me, what I've not done in ThoughtWorks, or what the kind of experience I was looking forward to, is sort of building a business.
Okay.
I've done a lot of technology. I've learned what it means to write scalable applications, distributed applications. How do we build teams and culture and all of that across multiple years at ThoughtWorks. But building a business, like the toughest thing that we're doing right now is selling. How do you sell, right?
Yeah, and startup selling is always aggressive. You got to be aggressive.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and you got to
believe it all the time.
Yeah.
Although ThoughtWorks many years ago was a startup by itself, and
It
they
was.
built some great products, right?
Absolutely.
And I think and it's a great move. And for me also, I come from legacy magazines, right? And when I joined Your Story, the same move. You got to think differently, and you got to challenge. And I think the important aspect for you guys, you should take this, Cathy. How important is a founding team for you?
I think the founding team is definitely very important. Those are the people that are going to set culture. We are the people that are going to set the standards and be an example and set the vision, right, and make tough decisions as well as happy decisions, celebrate successes, and persevere through failure. So I think it's very important for alignment. Alignment amongst the founding team is probably one of the keyest things, right? Too. And if the thing is, like, if there's not strong alignment, it's fine. You can always work towards it. But if there's a break in alignment, it can be extremely disruptive.
So who takes decisions? I know Srikar's always lost in his,
we call Srikar a free radical,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
he's a free radical in the sense that he has a very set of specialized skills. He obviously has insight and information about everything that's going on, but he's able to really get the space to ideate and focus on research and stuff like that.
Nice. So you delegate roles?
Yeah, we delegate roles, but I think that we've really tried to build a transparent and inclusive culture. We try to get buy-in, not only just from the management team, but ultimately also from your early employees, right? You're making big decisions, and unless you get buy-in, we don't really think that the hierarchical way of like, look, somebody said, and then you tell 2 people, and then those 2 people will disseminate the information to 5 people. One thing that I loved about Kata when he joined is he comes from such a strong, there's a lot of great IT companies in India. There's not a lot of great places with such strong culture. Strong culture of transparency, strong culture of being able to, whoever you are in an organization, to say anything and to voice an opinion and be taken seriously.
And that's why you guys should join Dunya Labs. And that's the hard fact of it, and that's the truth coming from Cathy. And I would vouch for that too.
Yeah.
Work with people who are aggressive, who can challenge you, and that's very important.
Definitely.
Cathy, quickly tell me, what are you reading? And Kata, I'll move to you. What are you reading to? What are you reading now? Why does it inspire you? Before we take audience questions, there's a lot of questions.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I'm reading is called The Master Switch. It's a really interesting book actually about the evolution of different types of information and communication systems. So it starts with the telegraph, goes to the telephone, radio, film, and then ultimately the internet. So it uses the past because we work in blockchain, right? So we have to think about why is it that centralized systems always seem to win, right? Things seem to get consolidated. The internet started as a really decentralized space. Why is it suddenly Amazon, Google, Facebook? So we realize centralized systems, they have economies of scale. They really benefit from obviously those network effects, right? So telephone, all these communications go through the same pattern. But then the centralization also breaks, and usually it's always a decentralized counterpart that starts challenging incumbents. And I think we're entering that moment right now in history, which is a really exciting time.
Just to connect the dots here, the Roman Empire started off as a kingdom, becomes a republic, which is decentralized, then becomes an empire, which is centralized, and then collapses again.
Exactly.
Right? So I don't know, humans are subject to these kind of things. It's very strange. We'll have a chat on that separately. What are you reading? By the way, her book is Master Switch. She recommends that. Right? Do you remember the author?
No.
No, that's okay. But Master Switch is a book.
I'm reading the book named The Box. It's about containers, not Docker containers, not technology containers. It talks about real shipment containers when it got into the mainstream, how it disrupted the transportation industry, how it made like transportation of goods from one continent to another continent in a matter of days, which used to be like weeks and months and so on and so forth. The reason why that got interested is there is a disruption outside technology. And how that evolved, what were the initial teething issues, because there's a lot of backlash also from it actually made a lot of people lose their jobs who were like literally carrying rucksacks and all of that on their back to earn their bread and butter, right? So that sort of disruption, what were the initial problems and how do you apply that? How do you see synergy in the industry of technology? Similar disruption, because we are at a technology which sort of we believe would disrupt the entire
It's called
space.
The Box. But two interesting books, I'm glad. 2 different perspectives, communications and logistics, because everyone talks about Steve Jobs, built to scale, and I was like saying, come on guys, there's so much more to life than that. But let's go audience questions.
Sure.
Yeah, you can decide who wants to talk. First one from Gayatri, and she says, as a blockchain startup, what are some of the challenges you've faced so far? Any new tips for developers, newcomers? Who wants to go?
So one of the things we definitely face is, again, developer awareness, right? Our core as a product company is engineers, and we really want to break some of the myths because we get a lot of questions from developers being like, we're super interested, but do I have to be a blockchain developer?
Yeah.
Or we're super interested, but we don't know where this space is going. Or there's a lot of bad press around this blockchain thing, this crypto thing, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we need to break a lot of those myths because as a product company, our engineers and our product team, that's our lifeline. So I think that's a problem we face.
Okay, then next one from Charita Vasudev. For an aspiring blockchain developer, what are some of the key skills? We spoke about some skills, but what are the key skills?
So like I said, all fundamentals of what it means to write scalable code and efficient code.
C, C++.
The languages, every blockchain supports more than one programming language in terms of how you could write smart contracts like JavaScript, Java, C++, Solidity is very similar to JavaScript, ECMAScript, and so on and so forth.
Sometimes functional languages too, Haskell.
Python, So even protocols are built on C++ and Haskell and all of that. It's not like...
give them the 3 things that they have to learn before they come to you.
Learn about what it means to have your data in a decentralized network. What it means to have your data replicated across multiple things. Right?
Are there courses for that?
Absolutely, there are tons of courses on Coursera, Udemy, and there are tons of online courses. But again, all of these courses are at a very high level in terms of cryptography. What does a blockchain mean? How does a transaction ends up being in a blockchain? Where there are very few courses which talks about what it means to build a smart contract and all. But the community is pretty good. The community is very open. You could just put a message in any of these blockchains communities. You get a very good response and help in terms of how to build stuff.
To pass the Dunya Labs test, what should they learn?
They just need to know
Is it rigorous?
No, it's not. We have one single coding problem which is purely to look at their learnability, and also to get rid of that myth saying that hey, you've solved a blockchain problem. It wasn't hard, was it?
So you expect blockchain kind of algorithmic solving problems when they come for interview?
So really when people come, the first thing that we test is, are you a strong engineer who can write clean, efficient, scalable code? That's base 1, right? Base 2 is how quickly can you learn? If we give you and say, look into this particular protocol, how quickly can you get into the weeds, play around with the clients, read some of the libraries, and get your mind around all the things? Because learnability is huge. This space is emergent technology. Things change really quickly, and it's not going to be you're working in a company with a 20-year-old code base and a lot of things are going to be done for you. You need to go out there and you need to learn, you need to ask questions. But one of the funnest things is you get to interact with the global community. Every single blockchain protocol is backed by a community that is really in love with the protocol itself, with that particular platform, and you can always go into Telegram, Reddit, all of these more grassroots, communication methods, and just talk to guys that built the very source code, and there's always a helping hand. So we need people with that attitude, who aren't used to a very formal way of learning.
Flexibility is very key for us because we want to do...
So the next question is interesting. There is scarcity of blockchain talent. Karthika says this. But, how do you hope to build that talent? Would you be the first ones to do so?
Absolutely. So one of the things we're doing is we have a Catalyst series. I think Kata talked briefly about it. So this is a series where we host hands-on developer workshops to give people a 3-weekend to 5-weekend long experience of saying, come here and build something, And we just did a project. It was three weekends long. So the first offering of the series, we partnered with the government of Telangana on this. We partnered with Encrypt and some other great blockchain companies in India to bring this to developers, and I think about 4 or 5 teams from that program are still working on those projects today.
So you're saying the industry is building the talent, not the universities in India.
So
that's the problem too.
That's also happening. Like a couple of weeks back, we were invited by government of Telangana to look at how do we build this blockchain awareness, how do we increase the talent pool, because we want to bring in a lot more investments in terms of blockchain space, and in order to do that, you need to have enough talent. So even the government is doing, they've started like blockchain district in Telangana government, which is sort of, giving incubators and, accelerators in terms of whether it's about through mentorship or through providing, technology help. And government is also doing a lot. And there was one guy from who designs courses for these IITs who was asking us, okay, what sort of electives should we have so that people learn about these technologies in the colleges?
We're running out of time. We have time for 2 more questions quickly.
Great.
So where is the blockchain space headed quickly?
We think the blockchain space that is headed to really exciting times in the next few years. What we're really looking at in the next few years is a lot of these public protocols are releasing their mainnets. So we want to see who are going to be the ones that really win, that gain market share, that sees the most usable applications, that become kind of the dominant underlying piece of a decentralized internet. So that's where we're really excited about. And we're also excited about kind of a lot of the noise in the market receding, and a lot of the past few years were just a little too crazy, and we see what is left.
There'll be more applications coming out, and there won't be any noise around crypto that much, and there'll be real applications. But the only thing I'm scared about is centralized systems, right? Like private contracts. So again, the last one. What is the most positive aspect that comes to you when you think about the Indian blockchain ecosystem? Is there anything positive at all? There's nothing happening except Dunya Labs doing something and some other startup.
There's a lot of scope, right? Like in terms of the opportunity, there's a lot. And as entrepreneurs who are working in this space, it's our responsibility to educate the people around you, to educate the government, to educate the other co-founders and all of it, how we could leverage this ecosystem and the value we could provide to the broader economy.
And I think people have been open, even I think that someone like Kata joining Dunya and becoming such a leadership role in the technology and the team that we're building speaks to the fact that people are open-minded, people want to learn, people pick up things extremely quickly, and that's a blessing.
So guys, go back to the interview, check out what books they like, and check out what they thought about the blockchain system. They are actually hiring, and the email is hiring@dunyalabs.com. .io. You want to say that again? Dunya Labs?
It's hiring at dunyalabs.io.
Okay. And you're hiring for anybody?
Full stack developer, flexible, willing to learn, willing to, go ahead.
Great. Guys, watch the interview again for more, and we'll answer any questions. I'll send them to Cathy personally and I'll get them answered for you. Thanks, Cathy.
Definitely.
Thank you,
so
Kata.
much.
Thank you.
Always
No
a
problem.
pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Got to learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
You want to come in? It's still on.
Oh.
He almost rolled out.